Hey folks, so today I got a good question. Well, I think it was yesterday I got a question about they wanted to know what the handguards on the I think it was the XM177 looks like by VFC right here. Now I love making these type of content because like it's stuff that I don't think people talk about often, and you can't really make an entire video about it until someone asks these questions, in which I thought, hey, now's a good time to talk about them. And they're not really very interesting for many people, but I like to talk about them, and sometimes a lot of other people like them too. So hey, thanks for the question, and I love trying to do my best to answer them with what I know. So the original question was like, what are these handguards made out of by VFC? And so these are actually just your typical handguards. They're plastic on the outside, simple plastic, but on the inside there's a small layer of what's the word, a lining of metal on the inside. And that's kind of important because some models actually don't include that metal lining on the inside. So you can kind of see right there, that's the tube, right, the gas tube, but you can also see the outline of the metal lining right there, which is really cool. And this particular model actually does require to remove it, you pull back on the delta or the slip ring right there. But this particular model some models are more difficult than others to remove. In this particular model, you want the clamping tool to do so, to remove it. And I think I made a video on how to do that, but that's kind of what that compares to. Now, that's the original question, which is basically what this person probably wanted to know, and I hope that was enough. But I also thought, well, what is something like this compared to all the other series on the market right now throughout time, I guess. And so I want to start with the GMP model here. This model right here is a little bit kind of I don't know what to say. This is definitely old school. I've made a video where I've removed this and showed how it looked like on the inside. This one actually didn't come with heat shields, or sorry, internal heat shields, so it's all plastic on the inside. That's the original GMP model. Again, I've expressed my disappointment about this several times before for a model that claims to be realistic, and they really are for all other areas with the exception of the internal heat shields. So these actually are the real steel, or quote-unquote real steel handguards right here. And as you can see, you can kind of see the shiny reflective layers on there inside. Those are the heat shields right there. So that's pretty cool. They're a little bit different. If most people aren't going to have these because these are just very old retro models, and so no one's going to have this particular model here, but you can still get them. And like I said, I think they're worth it because they add the extra realism to it. So something to look for in your model. But in terms of the plastic quality, it almost feels it's been a while since I've looked at them, but this one seems a little bit more smooth and less a little bit shinier, the real steel, compared to the original GMP model right here, which is, again, minor difference. It's probably very hard to tell the difference apart, but there are some texture difference. Which one do I like better? Some people argue that the original one looks better right here by GMP. Others say this one's here. There's also dimensional differences. I think this one's a little bit fatter to hold compared to that one. But again, very niche market, but I figured this is probably the time to include it here. All right, let's move on to what I normally do around here, which is the slim skinny handguards for the other models. So the slimline ones, of course, are the ones that they're supposed to be single heat shield layers, and they're very thin as opposed to the double heat shield layers of the M4. See, much larger, much thicker compared to the thinner ones right there. Double heat shields. Tokyo Marui, kind of flimsy, thin on the outside from what you can tell, but pretty nice though. But all of these here are single shield. I'm gonna pull out the hard or the double heat shield M4 one later in a second. I don't have it on the table right here just to save space. But this one, if you notice, is a little bit shiny. There's a small shiny texture on it. Some people argue that this is actually correct, or period correct, where they use the kind of the more fragile, again, this is like the real steel history, back in like the 60s or whatever, they used the more real steel Bakelite, I think was the terminology for it. So it's a tiny bit shiny and it was a little bit more fragile. Again, I don't know how fragile this one is. It's, you know, for most purposes what you're using for airsoft, it should be fine. But of course, you know, it does feel very light, but of course, as long as you hold it, I don't know if it will take a hit by another BB and it will fracture or not, but from a collector value and just holding it for the purpose of what it's designed for, excellent. In terms of realism, perfect for the VFC. If you were to compare that to its very famous counterpart, the WE right here, you'll notice that the WE is the same thing in terms of the thickness of it, right? But this one has the a little more duller, and I think that the plastic is a little bit thicker on the WE here. Personally, I prefer the WE in terms of the texture. I'm not sure if it's historically accurate or not. I was told that this is probably more accurate by VFC than the WE. But in terms of personal preference or taste, I prefer this one. Just the dullness of it is my preference of it. It does come with the internals. The internal layers of metallic heat shields on the internal right there. You can see that. You flip to the bottom, you can see the same thing. So that's great. And of course, in case this wasn't obvious, it wasn't to me, but so these, it's a fun historical fact. This one of the reasons why they switched to this one from this triangular to the round circular one was because these made sourcing and replacement very difficult, because when one part would break, you would need to find the left piece because they split up into two, right? Right here, right? This is the left chunk right here, and this is the right chunk. So when they break, you would need to find the left piece and find the right piece. So you can't just swap them, obviously. Whereas on the round ones, it doesn't matter whether the top or bottom that breaks, there's one piece, you can just attach them. And so it just makes logistics much easier. Also, some people say it's better grip. You know, it's ribbed or whatever, so it's easier to hold. This, I personally find the triangulars very comfortable as well too, so sometimes even more comfortable. There is a little slip if you hold it from the base sometimes, or not like this. Sometimes because it's triangular, there's a tendency that the whole thing could slip because it's like a cone shape, whereas it won't really slip as much with this if you're holding it vertically. But that's kind of the WE. In terms of durability, never had an issue. Again, I've never taken a hit directly to this, so I don't know if it survives it, but certainly I would be willing to bet that this would be able to put up with an impact from a BB rather than this right here. But again, that might be historically accurate, so you got to think about that too. But it's also about preference. So the good news is that if you don't like it, you can always change it out, which has been kind of the case with this Tokyo Marui. Not really Tokyo Marui. This is kind of a what, I don't know. This is like a, well, it's a Tokyo Marui, but in the internals, but the external, you've seen my video on the M727, I think, I can't remember. Yeah, one of my favorite models right here. But this actually uses the a real steel handguard set. Now, interestingly enough, when I read the reviews on this, they said that people who actually know what they're talking about, right, like actual collectors, tell me that in terms of how these handguards hold up for the real steel, like the real 5.56, this is apparently garbage. I don't know. I mean, I've held real ones before, and I don't know. It seems fine to me. I got them from Brownell's, and they were pretty good. Certainly for what I'm using it for, and of course, I would imagine these would definitely stand up to BB hits from Airsoft. So I don't think this is, I think this is one of my favorite in terms of both the texture, the color. Obviously it's going to include the heat shields because it's the real thing. It's a single layer, by the way, because it's a thin one. But absolutely perfect. So, and this one does, yes, it does fit on the WE. Sometimes they don't fit on other models though, which is an interesting thing. But it really depends, and sometimes it's like a tolerance thing. But for the most part, Marui, WE, ViperTech, they should be all fine. Or not Viper, yeah, well, ViperTech too, yeah, and VFC. This one's like an oddball one. This one's by, I want to say it was Mad Dog or something like that. This is that what do you call it? Oh, this is that M723. Oh, I just scratched the surface right there. But this is the M723 model right here. That was a kind of a custom build. I have problems with this one, but whatever. In terms of this, we're not talking about anything else right here. We're just talking about looks today. And you know, this handguard set is probably comparable to the, I would say, the WE in terms of the texture. Kind of that dull plasticky look. Again, single heat shield on the interior with the exterior, sorry, single heat shields in the interior, dullish on the outside. Not bad plastic, it's fairly thick and probably sturdy enough, no different from anything else. Kind of course, all of them are gonna have a little like warp on the side or the ends where it kind of splits open a little bit. Sometimes they don't have it, like the WE right there or the real steel, pretty seamless or closed nicely. The VFC closes nicely too. The ViperTech actually doesn't for some reason, so just FYI there. But that's kind of, I would say that's kind of the same. So if you're into Mad Dog or whatever, I think it was, I can't remember, I have to look it up. It's kind of the same as the, in terms of dullness, the plastic is the same as this one. The last one I want to talk about is, this is the ViperTech. This is the original ViperTech one. I know I've probably mentioned this all already when I made the individual reviews of each of the products, but I guess I'm going to condense all of them into one like handguard discussion basically. This is the ViperTech one. And again, I was just as disappointed when the GMP didn't have the handguards for being so authentic everywhere else. They didn't include the heat shields in the handguards. The same thing with ViperTech. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why. When you use this is the original, kind of shiny, the Bakelite type of plastic, a little bit comparable to the VFC one right here, but a tad bit shinier in my opinion, a little bit too shiny. But this isn't bigger or thicker or anything, it's just because I have it, it's the angle of the camera right now, but it's a little bit shinier than the VFC one. Plastic may be a little bit tougher, a tad bit tougher I think, but in any case, it's didn't come with the internal metal heat shielding, which is kind of a disappointment. And when you try to, you could replace them with the real steel one, which I've done, but for some reason I don't think this is these are very these were just my least favorite for some reason. And again, it could just be my personal opinion of it. Important thing to note though is the number of holes, the vent holes right there. So most of the original ones, or the modern, quote-unquote modern ones, have 7 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. Okay, so the moderns have 7. These all have 6 here. So something like this one right here should have 7, which is quote-unquote modern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I totally lied. I know you can get ones of 7. I guess all the ones I have are 6. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, all of them are 6. The quote-unquote more modern ones might have 7, but the original ones have 6. So just something to point out right there. And then of course, I want to point out the last one here. This is unrelated to the family of handguards that we're talking about before, but this is of course the GHK one. Very solid plastic right there. Very, very solid. I would say that this is probably just the design of it, because it's just different. Obviously it's more flat and angular than the circular one, but very tough one here. I would say this is probably the toughest plastic among all of them. Well, excluding this one, but I would say that these two would be almost hand in hand similar in terms of durability. So anyway, I'll put up the video of the Marui one, and then but yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question of what are these specifically made of. See, much larger. much thicker compared to the thinner ones right there. Double heat shields, Toki Marui. Kind of flimsy or thin on the outside from what you can tell, but pretty nice though.